Weekends. Those precious 2 days offer a brief respite from the mundane, a chance to trade the daily grind for thrilling adventures. We crave escape, a chance to shed our routines like snakes shedding skin, to trade the familiar for the unknown. A cabin in the woods promises crackling fires and star-filled nights. A secluded beach beckons with the rhythm of waves and the promise of sun-kissed relaxation. We pack our bags, anticipation bubbling in our chests, blind to the lurking shadows that await. The open road stretches before us, a ribbon of asphalt unspooling towards freedom. The city's clamor fades into the distance, replaced by the whisper of wind and the murmur of tires on pavement. With each mile, the weight on our shoulders seems to lessen, replaced by a growing sense of liberation. But what if, just beyond the horizon, danger lurks? What if our idyllic escape is merely a prelude to terror? The world is full of stories, whispers carried on the wind, tales muttered around flickering campfires, stories of weekend getaways gone wrong, of idyllic retreats transformed into nightmares. They speak of laughter choked into screams, of relaxation morphing into terror, of the line between escape and horror blurring in the blink of an eye. These are not mere ghost stories, whispered for a cheap thrill. They are warnings, etched in fear and regret, reminding us that even in the pursuit of pleasure, darkness can find us. These are stories of weekend getaways that spiraled into horror, of escapes that turned deadly. They remind us that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, that even in the pursuit of joy, we are not immune to the darkness that festers at the edges of our world. Turn back now, dear reader, while you still can. For once you delve into these tales of terror, you may never look at a weekend getaway the same way again. The old cabin nestled deep within the Redwood National and State Parks, a seemingly idyllic retreat for young lovers Emily and Ethan. They sought solace from the city's clamor, a chance to reconnect amidst towering trees and whispering pines. The drive was long, the road winding like a serpent through the dense forest, but with each passing mile, the weight of their worries seemed to lessen. Upon arriving at the cabin, bathed in the golden hues of the setting sun, they felt a sense of peace settle over them. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine needles and damp earth. Hand in hand, they explored their temporary home, a rustic haven with wooden floors that creaked beneath their feet, and a stone fireplace that promised warmth and comfort. The setting sun cast long shadows through the trees, painting the clearing in shades of purple and orange. As darkness descended, they built a fire, the flames casting a flickering glow on their faces as they shared stories and laughter, the outside world fading into a distant memory. After a dinner cooked over an open fire, they retreated to the cabin's cozy bedroom, a small space dominated by a large four-poster bed covered in a patchwork quilt. The only sounds were the crackling of the fire and the gentle whisper of the wind through the trees. As Emily drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of contentment wash over her, the city and its troubles seeming a million miles away. But as the fire died down and darkness enveloped the cabin, a sense of unease began to creep in at the edges of her contentment. A primal instinct whispered a warning, urging her to be vigilant. The silence of the woods now seemed heavy with unspoken menace. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent shivers down her spine. The silence was broken by a soft scratching sound near the window. Emily's breath caught, and she slowly turned her head towards the sound. The scratching continued, like claws raking against the wood. Fear coiled in her stomach, cold and tight. Mustering her courage, Emily crept towards the window. She held her breath and peered cautiously through the glass. For a moment, she saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees, its eyes, glowing embers in the darkness, locked onto hers, and terror washed over her. Emily stumbled back from the window, her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to scream for Ethan, to run and hide, but her fear rooted her to the spot. She stood there for what felt like an eternity, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her eyes darting around the room searching for any sign of movement. The scratching at the window began again, more insistent this time, accompanied by a low growl that sent shivers down her spine. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision, but she refused to look away from the window. She had to see what was out there, had to face her fear head-on. Taking a deep breath, she reached out a trembling hand and slowly pulled back the curtain. The scratching stopped abruptly, and an eerie silence descended upon the cabin. Emily peered out into the darkness, her eyes struggling to adjust to the lack of light. At first, she saw nothing but trees and shadows. Then, she noticed it again. The faint outline of a figure standing at the edge of the woods, half hidden in the shadows. It was tall and slender, with long, thin limbs that seemed to blend into the darkness. Its eyes, 2 points of malevolent light, bored into her soul, and a cold dread spread through her body. Emily watched in terror as the figure began to move, gliding silently towards the cabin, its eyes never leaving hers. It moved with an unnatural grace, like a predator stalking its prey. She could feel its gaze on her, cold and calculating, and she knew that whatever it was, it meant her harm. Panic welled up inside her, threatening to overwhelm her. She had to wake Ethan, had to get help. Turning from the window, she ran to the bed, her legs feeling like lead weights. She shook Ethan's shoulder, her voice a desperate whisper. "Ethan, wake up. There's something out there." Ethan stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Emily? What is it? What's wrong?" "There's something outside," she hissed, her voice trembling with fear. "I saw it at the window." Ethan sat up in bed, his eyes finally focusing on her. "What are you talking about?" Just then, they both heard it, a loud thump on the roof above them. Ethan's eyes widened in alarm, and he scrambled out of bed. He grabbed a flashlight and shone it towards the window, but the figure was gone. Ethan went to the window and cautiously peered out into the darkness. "There's nothing there, Emily," he said, his voice a mixture of concern and disbelief. Emily shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. No, it was something else. Ethan pulled her close, trying to comfort her. "It's okay, I'm here now." He led her back to the bed and lit a candle, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the walls. Miles away from Emily and Ethan's encounter, another group of friends embarked on a weekend getaway, oblivious to the lurking darkness. Their destination, Black Ridge Forest, rumored to hold secrets best left undisturbed. Legends whispered of a malevolent entity haunting the woods. But these stories were dismissed as mere folklore. They set up camp, their laughter echoing through the trees. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows. A campfire crackled, casting a warm glow as they shared stories. Unease crept in with the cooling air. A sudden gust of wind extinguished their lanterns, plunging them into darkness. Nervous laughter rippled as they fumbled for their flashlights. "That was strange," Sarah commented, her voice uneasy. "Just the wind," Mark reassured her, despite his own unease. As the night deepened, a sense of dread settled over the group. The forest fell eerily silent, broken only by the crackling of dying embers. One by one, the friends retreated to their tents, seeking solace in the thin fabric walls that separated them from the encroaching darkness. But sleep proved elusive, chased away by a growing sense of unease. Inside their tent, nestled beneath a thin sleeping bag, Sarah lay awake, her senses on high alert. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes peering at her through the darkness. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of fear through her. Beside her, Mark slept soundly, oblivious to her growing anxiety. She envied his obliviousness, his ability to succumb to sleep while she lay there, a prisoner of her own fear. The silence was suddenly shattered by a blood-curdling scream. Sarah sat bolt upright, her heart pounding in her chest, her breath catching in her throat. The scream had come from Emily's tent, pitched just a few feet away. Scrambling out of her sleeping bag, Sarah unzipped the tent flap and rushed out into the night, Mark close behind her. The other campers were already gathered around Emily's tent, their faces illuminated by flashlight beams. their expressions a mixture of fear and confusion. Emily was huddled inside her tent, her body trembling, her eyes wide with terror. "What happened?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "What did you see?" Emily pointed a trembling finger towards the back of her tent, her voice barely a whisper. "It was there," she stammered, "standing right there in the trees, watching me." The other campers shone their flashlights in the direction Emily was pointing, but they saw nothing but trees and shadows. "There's nothing there, Emily," John said, his tone skeptical. "You must have been dreaming." But Emily shook her head, her eyes filled with terror. "No, I was awake. I saw it. It was tall and dark with glowing red eyes." A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. "Maybe it's time we pack up and head back," Sarah suggested. The others agreed, shaken by Emily's experience. As they packed, a sense of urgency hung in the air. The forest now felt oppressive, filled with an ominous energy. Their flashlights cast nervous shadows in the darkness. John came rushing back, his face pale. "Look," he stammered. There, etched into a tree, was a symbol, a circle with a single dot, crudely carved. It was the mark of the malevolent entity from the local legends. A cold dread washed over the group. The air grew heavy, charged with unseen energy. The forest seemed to press in, the trees swaying ominously. They were trapped, Sarah realized, their escape route cut off by an unseen force. A low growl echoed through the trees, circling them, drawing closer. Panic surged through the group as they huddled together, their flashlights casting flickering beams into the darkness. But the attack never came. The snarl faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of fiery orange and deep violet. A lone figure traversed the rugged terrain of the Appalachian Trail, his boots crunching on the dry leaves. As twilight deepened, shadows stretched and contorted, transforming familiar trees into menacing figures. Daniel continued his hike, his path illuminated by the soft glow of his headlamp. As darkness descended, the forest transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Daniel's unease grew with each passing moment, feeling watched by unseen eyes. He quickened his pace, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his heart pounding in his chest. The feeling of being watched intensified, and the whispers seemed to grow louder. Daniel realized with a growing sense of dread that he was hopelessly lost. He stumbled through the undergrowth, his headlamp beam bouncing erratically. His foot caught on a root, and he fell heavily to the ground, his backpack spilling open. A low growl, deep and guttural, emanated from somewhere in the darkness surrounding him. He scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. He fumbled for his headlamp, but the beam flickered weakly and died, plunging him into utter darkness. The growl echoed again, closer this time, circling him. Standing just a few feet away, illuminated by the faint green glow of the compass, was a figure with glowing eyes. Each story, a chilling echo of the terror that lurks beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Emily and Ethan, seeking a romantic escape, found themselves tormented by an unseen entity. The group of friends, venturing into Black Ridge Forest, stumbled upon a darkness that had haunted the woods for generations. Daniel, the lone hiker, found himself hopelessly lost and pursued by a creature embodying the forest's ancient spirit. We seek solace in moments of tranquility, but these stories remind us that peace is fragile. The woods can transform into a hunting ground, the silence broken by unseen eyes. The cheerful crackle of a campfire can morph into a sinister symphony of snapping twigs. These stories serve as chilling reminders that our perception of safety is often an illusion. The human psyche is drawn to the unknown, yet terrified of what it might find there. These stories tap into that primal fear, reminding us of forces beyond our comprehension. The scratching at Emily and Ethan's cabin window, the chilling symbol carved into the ancient oak tree. It is not the monsters we see that terrify us, but the ones we don't. As you close this book and return to the familiar comfort of your own surroundings, remember the tales you have read. Remember the chilling encounters, the unexplained phenomena, the lingering sense of dread. And ask yourself this: are you truly alone? Or is there something else out there, something watching, waiting? The darkness is real, and it is closer than you think.